In this video, I'm going to be philosophizing on the psyche. And I've philosophized on the psyche in previous videos, but this video is going to be a little bit more in depth, and I'm going to be elaborating on some aspects I was talking about in the previous video. And the psyche isn't actually discussed by too many contemporaneous psychologists and even philosophers of mind and body. And to my knowledge, no philosopher contemporaneous who has philosophized on the metaphysics of self outside of my own philosophizings. And the psyche is well defined as a must in regards to the good enough and necessarily necessary conditions as pertaining to these unknown unknowns of our existence, but yet which we have access to knowledge. And access to knowledge with regards to ourselves in more of these subtle elemental ways that are situated to the boundness and situatedness of our existence, in which we create meanings that are meaningful to us as individual whom are not the same as other individuals, and that pertain largely to our epigenome, and which regards these deep meanings that are bound to sets of meaningful information within our DNA and RNA structures, and which the chromatides of our existence make colorful these meanings that are resonant deep within us, and which can turn on and off different meaningful sets of information that are reciprocal relations to specific perception, action, and behavior that allow us to engage more meaningfully with regards to the self and surrounds, and that allow us to cultivate meaningful emotions that are seemingly emergent, but which there are these existing priors in which we can also instantiate new existing priors in regards to the prior decisions that we have engaged in the ops within arrays of conjurable meaning interpretations in our direct perceptions that allow us to tap into these access of knowledge and access of meaning that are at our disposal, and which we gaze upon with the mind's eye and can interact with the mind's hand in a calibratory process of creating meaning that's creative. It's innately and intrinsically creative in being able to engage these higher order organizations of cognitions and emotions that really spontaneously evoke awesome emotions, and awesome emotions that can exceed our perceptions, but at the same time can calibrate our knowledge of our own existence that's more well calibrated and well defined to our potential, and can potentiate new possibilities for ourselves that isn't just possible, it as a must require the good enough and necessarily necessary conditions for what's probabilistic, and which we may have not thought was probable, but within this process is truly probable, and which we discover and can open up these deepening expansivenesses of speculative truths that we can bring to the access of knowledge within our opting apparatuses of perception, action, and behavior that allow us to choose particular sets of meaningful information that allow us to conduct ourselves in a particular way that associates conscious processing with subconscious processing that pertains to these implicit and explicit elements and constitutioning aspects of the self from the appetites of the self that are where we connect our self to the regulations of the ego and bring the ego into balance instead of engaging the id and the psychological shallow needs, but that aren't really true psychological needs of the id that bring our ego into imbalances, and where we find we can bring ourselves into ego balances through engaging meaningfully in our psychological needs, and specific, the necessitated psychological needs, which can allow us to increase our capacity to aspire and to engage meaningfully in intrinsic motivations that increase self-actualization tendencies and allow us to become more of who we are as individual who have agency and who can engage a creating and meaning process within our psyches. And that's all I want to say for this video. Hope you enjoy.